Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we're going to check out another of these beasts of the Mesozoic Ceratopsian series figures as we take a look at our, I guess this would be the fourth now from Wave 2. This is the Einiosaurus, and this is one that I was really looking forward to because on top of being just generally a really cool looking Ceratopsian, one that looks quite different than many do, it had a really cool looking paint scheme on it, so I was overall, really interested in this one specifically because I felt like the final product of the figure looked really quite nice and nice natural tones of color as well. Some of the Ceratopsians have kind of brighter paint schemes. I've always been kind of a fan of like the darker type of paint schemes on Ceratopsians with, a little bit of flashiness included. And what I've seen as far as the paint scheme of this one goes look to be pretty much perfect as far as what I like to see on a Ceratopsian. So it's one that I was really interested in straight from the start as far as, of course, both the species, the sculpt, and the paint job. As far as the box art goes, you can see it's your standard Beasts of the Mesozoic box art. You can see kind of that Ceratopsian style footprint down there on the left. Of course, the window here showing us the figure itself contained within. And then you have an image to the right that's kind of part of a slipcover that does show the Einiosaurus with that beautiful artwork that we always see on the Ceratopsian series figures. And of course, the Beasts of the Mesozoic logo right there at the top. And then once we turn it around, you can see again the checklist on the back as far as the other species that are included in Wave 2 of the Ceratopsian series, as well as, again, kind of a sneak peek of the card that is included within the box and some information on the species down under it as well. So I'm really psyched about this. Cannot wait to get another of these Ceratopsian series figures out and take a look at it with you guys. So let's break it out right now and do just that. One of the things I feel like is often overlooked in my reviews is just how beautiful that kind of backdrop is that's contained within the boxes of each of the figures. Like, they really include some beautiful images back there as far as the, area that the dinosaur had probably roamed, and continuously they just look fantastic, just like we see right there. And then, of course, also contained within is the tail assembly instructions, and then our beautiful card of the Einiosaurus, and you can see it right there in a really nice forested setting with the Beasts of the Mesozoic logo down there. I love the cards. It's just in general really cool that they include kind of trading cards with these figures, but the artwork itself is just like next level beauty and always, resembles the figure quite nicely. And then once we turn it around, we have the actual figure itself here in kind of a little bit of a dinosaur photography type setting, as well as some information on the species, the Beast of the Mesozoic logo, and the Creative Beast Studio logo down here. All absolutely beautiful as always. And then we have our Einiosaurus itself, and look at how gorgeous that figure is right here before us. Like, that is just beautiful. Again, I really like the paint scheme they went with on this one. The nice darker tones of color with the grays and the blacks, and even some variations of red with that little bit of flashiness, but the reds are even darker tones. So I'm really a big fan of the way that they've actually painted this figure. Of course, the sculpt is incredible. It always is when it comes to a Beast of the Mesozoic Ceratopsian series figure or Raptor series figure or even the resin kits. Like, you always get incredible sculpts time and time again, which is definitely what I see here with this. But the paint job, again, looks fantastic as well. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump straight to a closer look right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Einiosaurus, you can see that the actual texturing to the skin is phenomenal as always, and it has a lot of really nice color variation that you almost don't pick up on immediately until you get closer and take a look at it. Like in the lower jaw, for instance, you can see quite a few different variations of like lighter browns and grays in there, and in the beak area, you can even see like some light hints of like a yellowish coloration that's been included in there. And of course it darkens to the tip, which is something that I often see on the Beasts of the Mesozoic Ceratopsian series figures, which I really do quite like. In general, there's a nice dry brushing on the beak to make that detail pop quite beautifully. You do have the nostrils sculpted out right there, but you can continue to see like variations of browns and grays and stuff, even included within the black areas of the face. I love how creative the paint schemes are with these figures. Like, continuously, I know they take inspiration from real life animals all the time as far as these figures go, But I feel like ceratopsians are potentially some of the hardest to figure out nice looking paint schemes for, and it really impresses me just how many ceratopsians, of course, they've released in this line, but the paint schemes always look great on the figures themselves. And of course, taking inspiration from modern animals is definitely a good way to go to find a natural looking paint scheme for an animal. But at the same time, again, you have to kind of adjust to make it look correct and look good on a ceratopsian, and they just do such a great job continuously on that. You can also see that there's some nice variation of brown around the eye. The eye is painted with a really nice orangish coloration, like a light orange, and then you have a black pupil. The eye is glossed beautifully, very, very realistically as well. You can see that the kind of like spikes that run along the frill are really nicely painted with an off-white, and you can see that as we lead up here into the top of the frill, you see more of that, and I feel like the coloration chosen is pretty much perfect. Like, it almost resembles like an elephant's tusks with the way that it's been painted, similar coloration and very realistically painted. They've dry brushed some beautiful detail out on them, and you can see that they transition to a nice black tip as well, which looks really good, again making the horns up there, the spikes up there, look quite striking overall. And the frill itself has a really cool design meshing with like this dark red and the light gray, and it looks really, really nice the way that they've applied that. I like that it's not exactly the same on both sides, because that is something that you would potentially see on a living animal like this. And then also painted again those kind of scoots that run down along the center of the frill quite beautifully as well. Once you get down here to that trademark Einiosaurus horn, you can see that that as well has been painted with a nice gray, and then has that kind of like a off-white like we see up here that runs over the top, but also has like some slight variations of browns included within. And then we have a striping of a blue and black that kind of trades places here until we reach to just the black striping. And I really think it's such a really cool idea to include paintwork like that on the horn, because it's not something that you often see on ceratopsians. So it really gives it, a unique look and a very striking appearance overall. Definitely a pretty cool idea. Once we open the mouth was a little bit stiff because it hasn't been moved around quite yet, but you can see the inside of the mouth is a very nice purple coloration, also given a beautiful gloss, and you can pick up on the teeth potentially in there a little bit, but the mouths of the ceratopsians are always a bit small, so they're hard to really get in and see, but it definitely looks nice what we can see, very realistic and lifelike as far as the application of the paint and the gloss coat used, giving it again that very nice saliva-like appearance inside the mouth. The detailing here on the underside looks great as well. Seems like they've given it like a reddish wash, which looks great. It honestly crawls in between each and every crack and crevice of those scales so perfectly, and just makes that detail on the underside pop in such a beautiful way. And it also appears as though they've like dry brushed some areas, like you could see a little variation of like brown and stuff right in that area of the throat. Very nice like skin wrinkles and skin folds and stuff down there in the neck region. As we get up here and look behind the frill, it's a little hard to really see it too clearly, but it definitely looks nice back there. Some more gorgeous scale detail is included in the back of the frill, painted with a nice black, which is of course the color we see up here that stripes down throughout the body, and you have very large stripes that run the course of the body on this one, as well as kind of like some light hints of that reddish coloration up here, that same dark red that we see up there. You can see it just kind of creeping through in different areas, looking really nice in that aspect as well. And you see more of like this reddish brown here in the front, in the chest region of the Einiosaurus, and it also runs down into the front legs, but then transitions to a gray for the rear part of the leg. However, you can still see sort of like that reddish wash creeping through in certain areas, like you can see it right here on the back of the front leg, which looks really cool. And we have more stripes that run down the course of the leg as well. The scale detail looks phenomenal as per usual. The foot sculpt looks really nice also down here. Nicely painted nails with a gray, also gloss coated like they usually are. And you can also see that there's like this blackish dry brushing that makes sure that the detail on the feet pop really quite nicely as well. Definitely a fan of that. The actual texturing to the skin here in the stomach region looks really beautiful, again brought out with a nice wash, and you can see it transitions to a totally different style of scaling here for the underside of the stomach region of the Einiosaurus, and also really nice and naturally painted down here as well. I love the way they've applied that like reddish wash throughout the figure in just certain little areas, and it just pops so nicely on the figure. As we lead back up here, you can see the hip bone quite nicely elaborated from the skin, as well as a few osteoderms poking up here and there. You can see that, again, we have kind of like some osteoderms that run along the spinal column of the Einiosaurus also. Beautiful muscle tone displayed in the thigh region of the Einiosaurus, as well as some more black striping as we run down the course of the leg. The kneecap is present here in the front of the leg. Very nicely defined muscle tone here in the calf region, and the scale detail back here as well looks great. It also appears as though they've potentially like dry brushed some light grays over top of the grayish areas to begin with, which looks really cool. Again, the striping continues until we get down into the foot, and then we have that nice dark black kind of dry brushing like we had seen previously on the first foot. Nicely painted nails yet again. And then moving back up into the tail, you can see more like skin folds and stuff as we lead out the length of the tail. The tail transitions to a much darker gray than you see right here. So then the tail overall is really quite dark. You can still see some more hints of like that reddish coloration poking up here and there, as well as the nice black stripes, but the actual grayish coloration of the tail is a much darker variation of gray than we saw elsewhere. And then you also have the cloaca present right there. If you look at the opposing side, of course, it's really going to look pretty much the same. As being an articulated figure like this, you're really not going to see too much difference on this side in comparison to the previous side, but I do want to show you, of course, both sides. This side looks just incredible like it did on the previous side. All of the paintwork looks pretty much just as nice as it did over on the initial side we looked at. All of the sculpt looks incredible as well. Again, a very nice, very striking paint scheme for the figure, but with really nice natural tones of color overall. Definitely a big fan of this. It's nice to see an Einiosaurus entered into the Beasts of the Mesozoic line, but absolutely awesome to see it turn out so beautiful. As far as the articulation goes, we do have the articulation in the head, which is really, really smooth. Like, that's beautiful articulation right there. So it's articulation in the neck in two spots. We've got it right here at the head, and then right here at the base of the neck where it connects to the body. So you can move the head up and down, left and right, which works perfectly. And then this area of the neck as well can allow for even more articulation, more posability with your Einiosaurus to give it some beautiful display options. But you also have the articulated jaw, which again is a little stiff at this point in time. We'll loosen that up as time goes on. We move it a little more, or you could of course hit it with hot water or a hair dryer to kind of loosen the joints up, move them around a little bit once they soften a little bit. But you do have shoulder articulation as well, and then articulation in the elbow, which also is a little stiff, but not too bad. You can see it moving right there. And then you also have articulation in the wrist area, which can move really quite nicely. It can move forward and back. It can also swivel. So there's a lot that you can do with it. This as well swivels a little bit right there. You can see it moving. It's again a little stiff because I haven't moved it prior to this. You also have articulation in the midsection of the Einiosaurus, as well as hip articulation, and then the knees, which often are kind of stiff for me, but this one's not too bad actually. That is moving quite smoothly. And then you have two areas of articulation in the ankles, which can move forward and back. Like you can see how it works really nicely as far as the articulation goes. You can also swivel the foot back here and then again move it down, move it up. So a lot as far as posability goes in just the legs alone. And then you have the tail, which can go left, right, up, down, or even swivel and go entirely upside down if you would like. So articulation galore for your Einiosaurus as usual when it comes to these figures. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Golovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Creative Beast Studio Beasts of the Mesozoic Einiosaurus. And you can definitely see in comparison to these guys that the figure is much smaller than the Pachyrhinosaurus that we had reviewed recently. That one was probably the biggest figure of all of them so far. This one is one of the smallest, but definitely not the smallest overall. But still, it sports a pretty good size as far as a figure goes. Even being one of the smaller ceratopsians included in the line, it definitely still sports some really nice size overall. And then for another comparison, just to show you the difference between the Pachyrhinosaurus and the Einiosaurus, you can really see, again, size-wise, there is a world of difference between the two. That Pachyrhinosaurus is just a beast back there. But the Einiosaurus, even being, a good bit smaller, still does sport a really nice size. So this Beasts of the Mesozoic Ceratopsian Series Wave 2 Einiosaurus is absolutely beautiful. like every figure has been so far, and I honestly don't think I'll ever say anything otherwise about these figures. Continuously, I have yet to be anything but blown away by every single one of the Ceratopsian series figures, and from the Raptor series, like way back when those were released, I have never been anything but, again, impressed by each and every release that has come out from the Beasts of the Mesozoic line, and the Ceratopsian series are continuously killing it each and every time I get a new figure out. I'm just in love with it instantly, and this Einiosaurus is no different. The sculpt of this, of course, is picture perfect to what I would like to see on an Einiosaurus, and the fact that it's an articulated action figure just makes it so much cooler overall. But the actual detailing aspect of the figure is really nice, really crisp, and definitely, again, as highly detailed as it gets when it comes to a figure of this species. They've included, everything you like to see: skin folds in certain areas, beautiful scale detail, even the very fine detailing of the horns is really nicely present, and they apply beautiful paintwork continuously to really take advantage of the detail in the sculpt. Like any area that has really nice detail, the Beasts of the Mesozoic line and David Silva himself, of course, will find a really good way to make sure that that detail comes out and pops and really jumps out at you. And I always notice that about these figures. Like, they do a great job of utilizing washes and dry brushing to perfection on every single figure, and you definitely see that quite significantly throughout the Einiosaurus here. It's definitely beautifully painted, again, very nice and naturally painted overall, and the paint scheme that they've gone with, again, is probably one of the nicest ones that I've seen as far as like what I usually like to see on a Ceratopsian, which the Beasts of the Mesozoic line, I will say, has been proving me wrong when it comes to thinking of Ceratopsians as far as like darker colorations, because they've released a lot of really nice, brighter and vibrant paint schemes on their figures, and each and every time it's always looked really nice and really natural. But as far as like my history of Ceratopsians go, I've always enjoyed the darker paint schemes on them, and this one includes, some really nice dark tones, although it does include some lighter tones of like grays and stuff at the same time. But for the most part, the coloration does have a nicer, darker appearance to it, and it was one thing that I was really a big fan of this figure. Definitely like the paint scheme, and I can say it looks great here in person as well. And then, of course, you have some incredible articulation, allowing just endless possibilities as far as displaying this or any of your Ceratopsians from this line. As usual, they do a bang-up job in the articulation department, and all of the articulation seems to be working really nice and smoothly overall, like it always does. So if you are interested in picking this up, make sure you check the description, as I will have a link to where you can do just that, and make sure you definitely purchase this or any of the other Ceratopsian figures you are interested in, because they are fantastic, easily some of the best dinosaur figures that you'll ever see, and a huge recommendation from me. So again, check the description, go buy this beautiful Einiosaurus, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.